Hi, it's Dot, and after a really long day of food prepping for the entire week, it's now time to make dinner. And this is a perfect dish for you to make on the weekend. It's a perfect family dish with plenty of leftovers, depending on the size of your family. We're making a Sunday pot roast for the family, and it'll be yummy, delicious, and very low carb. You can make this in your slow cooker. However, I'm going to make it in my Dutch oven, so it's going to cook for about 4 hours, which will be perfect. But the ingredients I'm going to put in it, obviously, is a roast. I'm using a chuck roast. You can use a brisket. That also makes it's a tough cut, but it becomes tender the longer you cook it over a low temperature, just like a chuck roast. So I'm using that. That's my main ingredient. I'm using 1 small onion. I've already quartered it. I've already got it set up. I'm using kosher salt and black pepper. I'm using celery. I have rosemary and thyme for my aromatics. I'm using carrots, and now you don't see Dr. Trot using carrots a whole lot because they're very carby. Not a whole lot of, there's fiber in them, but not enough to justify the sugars in the carrots. But let's be honest, what's a roast without carrots? So I have 2 carrots I'm putting in. I'm using garlic. I have mushrooms. I'm using portobello mushrooms I've already quartered and set up. And then I'm using tallow, because that's, you don't have to use tallow. You can use butter, you can use ghee, you can use coconut oil if you prefer, or olive oil. But I'm going to use tallow, and that's going to be used to sear my steak. And I just like keeping the strong beef flavor. I'm using beef broth, and it's up to you whether you want to use tomato paste or a red wine. And a red wine is more like a pot roast with a burgundy flavor to it, if you will, a sort of a French flavor to it. I'm using red wine. With a tomato paste, that's more of a country style pot roast. So it's up to you what you want to use. The carb counts do vary, obviously, so just so you know, but it's up to you if you don't want to use, and if you want to avoid the wine and just use this and minimize the carb count, just use a little bit more of the beef broth if you choose to. So with that, let's go ahead and let's get this roast going. All right, what I'm going to do is just season my roast, and I'm just going to use kosher salt. I love the big flakes, and you can't go wrong. You can't really over season the roast, so you're just going to put that in there. The roast has been out for about an hour to let it come to room temperature. Don't be shy on the salt. Like I said, I'm using kosher salt, so it has much bigger flakes. And I'm also going to do black pepper on it as well. And what you want to do is you want to press the seasoning in. You're just going to press it in to the meat. And you're going to season it on all sides. All right, so what I'm going to do, I got my roast all seasoned, nice and seasoned all the way around. I'm going to go ahead, you can hear that sizzle, and you want to hear that sizzle, you just put it in there. And I've done this before on other videos if you've seen them. I'm just searing all sides of the roast because I want to sear in that flavor. I'm going to leave it in for about 2 to 3 minutes per side. I want a nice brown coat on it. It's not going to be cooked all the way through, it's not going to be burnt, but I want that before it goes in the oven. All right, my meat is searing, and so what I'm going to do is go ahead and chop my vegetables right now. And so for the celery, I do leave the leaves on because it adds flavor. It's a nice little thing to add in there, and they can cook and you can eat them, so it's not a big deal. What I'm going to do is just simply, I'm going to cut them at a slant, and for some reason I like to shift myself at the slant too, but I'm just going to cut about, you want them to be about 1 inch in size roughly. And all you're going to do is just go ahead and chop. And that means the leaves as well. All of this is going to go into the pot roast. And the next thing you're going to do is you're going to do the carrots the exact same way. You can use up to a cup of carrots. That's fine. I'm just using 2 carrots specifically just because it adds enough flavor, but carrots are very, very sugary, so I don't want to add too much, but it still gives me that nice comfort feeling when I make a pot roast. So I'm going to flip my meat. And, woo! My meat now has, I just flipped it. It has a nice little brown coloring to it, which is what I want. I'm going to let it cook for a little bit longer. So I've been doing about 3 minutes aside. I'm probably going to do about 4 minutes to get a really nice deep brown on the other side. But with that, we will then start making my pot roast once this is done browning. All right, I put my little splatter guard on top because it got a little sizzling. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take the meat out so you can see again how nicely browned it is. Now I'm going to go ahead and carefully remove it. I'm just going to put it on a plate. It's going to go back in there, but the next thing I'm going to put in is going to be my onions. I'm going to brown my onions, and I'm going to brown the carrots and the celery. You just sort of want to start cooking them a little bit. There's enough oil in there. There's enough tallow in there for them, and you're just going to brown them. All right, I have a lovely brown color on all of my vegetables, so I am good. And if you notice at the bottom of the pan, you see all this good brownness. It's not nothing burnt, it's just part of the flavor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to deglaze the pan, and I'm going to keep the vegetables in there. You can take them out if you want to. I choose not to. And that's where I'm adding my red wine. Now, the nice thing about when you cook wine, if you cook it long enough, the alcohol actually burns out of it, which is what's going to happen. So what I'm doing right now, and I use a wooden spoon for this, but I'm deglazing the pan. And again, I've talked about this in other videos, but basically it allows me just to scrape up all the good flavor that was stuck to the bottom of the pan from the meat and from the vegetables, and now it's going to get mixed in there. So I'm going to go ahead and add my celery leaves. Now you can add the garlic if you want to when you're cooking, when you're browning your vegetables. I tend not to because garlic browns pretty fast, and this is a minced garlic, so I didn't really want to do that. I'm going to go ahead and add all the mushrooms to it too. Oh, it smells so good right now. I can't tell you how awesome this smells. But what I'm going to do right now, get all those leaves off of here, I'm going to go ahead and add my steak. So let me grab my tongs. I keep saying steak. It's a roast. My husband calls this a steak because for him, he thinks it is a steak and he just wants to eat the whole thing. It is a roast. It's a chuck roast. This is about 3.5 pounds that I have here. I'm going to go ahead and add it to the top here. And it just, oh, lovely. The next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to add 2 bits of rosemary and some thyme onto it. And then I'm going to add my beef broth to it. And basically with broth, you want it to come up to about half of the roast, half the way up the roast. I'm actually going to add a little bit more. I use 2 cups, sometimes I use 3 depending on how things shake out in here. I'm going to add a little bit more. It will be short of 3 cups of broth, but then once I do that, it's going to go in the oven. It cooks in the oven for about 3.5, 4 hours roughly at 275 degrees. And then when it comes out, all of the collagen that is in this cut of meat, because it's really well marbled, will have melted, and it'll be so tender, it'll start falling apart basically once it's all done. It's been about 3.5 hours. I'm taking a peek at it, and it looks absolutely delicious, and it smells wonderful, and it's definitely just it's pretty tender, which I love, and I think we're pretty much, ooh, see, it just peels off. All right, I've let it rest for a little bit, and it's already starting to fall apart real easily, as you can see, but it smells absolutely wonderful. I'm going to go ahead and take a small little bite. It's wonderfully tender. You can taste a little bit of the wine, the flavor of the wine, so it's a nice little burgundy sauce that I made with this. It tastes just... oh, it's delicious. I just want to sort of dig right in. But it's a real simple dish to make. Yes, it takes some patience because of the amount of time it takes, but it's well worth the 3.5, 4 hours it's going to be in the oven at a low temperature. And it's a nice dish with a fairly cheap cut of beef that you can feed a family of 6. If you get a larger cut than what I have, you can feed, whoops, 8 to 10 people. I just sort of want to dig right in. So I hope you give this a try. It does look absolutely wonderfully delicious, and it smells that way, and it definitely tastes that way. So if you like, go ahead and subscribe, give it a thumbs up. And also, if you want to know when my videos come out, just hit the little bell in the lower right-hand corner, and you can basically get notified when my new videos come out. Every time they get out, you get an email notification. So I'll see ya.